So welcome everyone to the third Safety 7 meeting. Now, during this session, we're going to be discussing about our experiences with mental health. So there are a couple of rules for this session that some of you that have not been on before may not be familiar with. But what we will say is if everyone can go on to mute while other people are talking, just stops that echoing and just stops the noise and stops putting people off. It'd be much appreciated. But most importantly, what we're doing here is we are creating a safe space where people can open up and share their thoughts and their ideas and their experiences. So we don't want any negative comments or interruptions or anything like that. If you are planning on putting negative comments and things like that, you will be ejected and won't be asked back. Everyone good with that? Okay, so we are recording the session. We do plan on sharing it on YouTube and via social media channels. So if anybody is on the call and doesn't agree with that, you're more than welcome to drop off. We won't be offended, we promise, but just to let you all know. And what we'll do is when each speaker takes their turn, they'll do a slight introduction, a brief introduction into who they are and what they do. And after all of us 7 have shared our experiences, we'll give the opportunity to either post comments in the chat or questions for us, or pop your hand up and we'll have a discussion around anything that's been spoken about or anything that you'd like to share yourselves. Everyone happy with that? Yeah, okay. So with that in mind, we'll hand over to Stuart, who is our first one of the evening.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Another Safety 7 meeting. Hope it's a good one for you. I'm Grad Ayosh. I've been in safety for 15 years, working my way up from a company secretary, and then decided I wanted to see what the external consultant was talking about, and just the general curiosity that we all have as safety professionals. Has somebody's percolator just gone off? I just heard that coming through then. But the natural curiosity of a safety professional come through, and I wanted to know more and more about everything. So I think that's what we all do. Currently working in building services, but semi-retired now, and enjoying the time off, working 3 days, 4 days, but picking up 1 or 2 little consultancy jobs just to keep my mind in, and hopefully going for chartered probably second quarter of this year. Something I've been putting off. I've been through 2 IPD sessions already, sorry, 1, and I let the 2 years go and had to pay for it again. So just be aware of that. You've got 2 years to do it, and if you've not, then you pay again and you start all over again. But that's something I'm hoping to do this year. When we put this subject together on mental health, it made me think, what do the people who come to Safety 7 meetings want out of the Safety 7 in the way of mental health? And for that, I had to try and put myself into their minds. And I've spent most of the day, a day off today, just thinking about it, doing a few Google searches, thinking about what you would want out of this meeting. Yeah, I'm quite happy to share my own story. What I will say is everybody's story is personal in mental health, and it is unique to you as an individual. It's the way you've been brought up, it's your values, it's the environment that you've been brought up in. Everything produces this brain of yours that reacts in a certain way, and no one person could ever understand, as empathetic as you can be, or understand what you're going through. The second thing I want to say is that at times when we are reliving these things, which has been a subject of accident investigations recently, just by reliving them, you can trigger something in yourself. So, one of the Safety 7, I'm not sure it'll be me, it could be any one of us, that reliving that moment that we went through, our significant emotional event, may be the moment that triggers our own feelings. So expect a little bit of emotion tonight, just in case that happens. And if necessary, we'll go on mute and we'll go off and reform ourselves and get ready. It's just the personal side of the moment, and it can trigger those feelings. And if it triggers it in you, just by the things that we are saying, just be aware of that. Don't take it on us as personal. We're not out here to change anybody's life, but just be aware that if we say things that trigger an emotion in you, it's not deliberate on our behalf. So when I went looking at mental health, I came across the history of mental health, something not many people go into, and that is that we really started with mental hygiene. And mental hygiene, I think, is a better way of looking at it, because it is those little things that clean up or make the mind different. And I think if you look at it as a hygiene, you've got things that improve your mental health, and there's things that make it poorer. And I think sometimes mental health is given this one name, and immediately it's got negative connotations. They say you've got mental health issues, or you've got a mental health problem. And actually, mental health is a good state to be in. The Wikipedia says it's a state of good well-being. Mental health is good. We should really look at it as degrees, almost like a stock market line, degrees of up and down. And we're all in that process of being up or down in our mental health journey. And we've got to look at it sometimes as a positive thing. Mental health is positive. And you can make it positive rather than negative. And it's all in our language, and language is important. Language is important because that's how you would identify where someone is having either a good journey in their mental health or a poor journey in their mental health. And it'll be body language, it'll be language that they use. And I think, it's up to us to recognize that in individuals as much as it is to recognize it in ourselves. I've had 3 big significant emotional events in my lifetime. 2 of them are based around relationships that failed in certain areas. How did I overcome that moment where I thought all was lost? I'm fortunate. I'm a very positive person. And when I got to the bottom of the barrel, I know that's the bottom and I don't go any further. And I always make my way up. There's always one little thing extra. And I got out of it by reading, just reading and learning about my own relationship with myself. And I think that was important, to study what were the triggers, why they triggered me in a certain way. And I think by reading, I then understood what my body was doing, what my language was producing to other people. And it's that knowledge and awareness that gets you out of these things. I came across a saying in one of the books I've just put onto our Safety 7 thing, was something about a guy will turn to drink, but then drink creates the problem afterwards. So you can have these things that certainly help in your mental health journey, but then they could be the damning bit that creates a circle of mental health problems. The last one I want to talk about is Isaac Ray, who's the president of the American Association of Psychology, said the art of the mental health or mental hygiene is the art of preserving the mind against all incidents and influences calculated to deteriorate its quality, impair its energies, or derange its movements. And that rings true. That rings true. When I went down to the lowest of the low, when a relationship failed, it felt like my mind was altering. It felt like my mind was smaller. It felt like the world was smaller. And I was so lucky that I had family and friends who recognized the symptoms in me to say, not just buck up or I understand what you're going through, but take me out of the environment and make me busy. And I think that was the critical moment where I realized, number one, I had friends and family who cared about me and wouldn't let me see me fail. But I also found other things to do that distracted me from what I was thinking about, because your mind goes into a spiral and that spiral just keeps going and going unless you break that spiral. And I hope that's been useful to you. I'm not always clear in what I say. I've done a little bit of research to give it to what, to try and think about what you would want out of it. And I'm quite happy to pass it on to the next person, who I believe is it Katie?
It is, yeah. It's how am I going to follow that, Stuart? Neil, can I not follow Stuart again? that was brilliant. Well done, Stuart.
Brilliant opener.
Yeah, Katie Jenner. I'm a senior health, safety and environmental manager for Wilmot Dixon. Yeah, I've also been trying to think, who else am I? I'm a chartered member of IOSH. Been chartered for a year now, so I've got another 4 years before I can go for fellowship. And I'm a mum. I'm a mum to a 5-year-old little boy, so that's me. Yeah, and to be honest, I've been dreading this evening. I'm not going to lie. I've actually got sweaty palms, which is a first for me, and it's simply because of the topic. And I'm okay with feeling vulnerable, believe it or not. You know, I value honesty, and I'm okay with being vulnerable. But tonight, yeah, I have got sweaty palms, so please do bear with me. But yeah, so to kick off, I wasn't sure whether I'd show up tonight. Ever since the topic of mental health has been announced, I felt anxious, and as I say, hands are sweating tonight, so I still am. And like I say, I'm fine with feeling vulnerable because, you know, that you're being honest and it's how you feel. So no one can ever tell you that you're wrong, because it's a feeling that you've got. But I think my anxiety came more from the perspective that I'm on the panel of the Safety 7. And I thought, well, if I'm on the panel of the Safety 7, that means that I've got to have lived the highs and the lows. I've got to have my act together by now, surely. And I probably need to be a finished and polished article, because otherwise, how else am I going to support and give advice to others? So I think that's kind of what started to trigger my anxiety. For me, mental health is a journey. It's a journey that is going to have highs and lows, and it certainly does have. And it's probably one that, for me personally, I'll never reach my destination. I've always been very shy and reserved. During my childhood, this meant that I had severe anxiety. I had a stutter throughout my childhood, just through to nerves. And my mum in particular used to finish my sentences for me so that I didn't stutter, because she didn't want me to feel even worse than I already did. I've spent years reading books. I've done self-reflection. I've got a coach. But I'm also fortunate enough to have a fantastic line manager. When I started in my career, with Wilmot Dixon in particular, some nearly 7 years ago, he actually said to me, Katie, it's not all about you. And back then I thought it was a bit rude, because it's about me. But you know what? I've done some growing, I've done some developing, and actually he's right. It isn't about me. And that actually keeps me so grounded with regard to my mental health and how I'm feeling, because it takes me past myself. There's a bigger picture. And actually I'm just one of the puzzle pieces that build that picture. And it just helps me to get through. I've also surrounded myself with my tribe, my support network and my cheerleaders. And I guess over the course of time, I've also recognised what my triggers to my mental health are. And as a result, I'm now kinder to myself. I've put this to the test this week. My little boy on Monday evening woke up during Monday night, really badly coughing, full up with a cold. And come Monday morning, none of us had had a wink of sleep, totally exhausted. He was emotional. The rest of us were emotional, and there was no way he could go to childcare. So I needed to make the work-life balance work even more than it normally has to, but I needed to work smarter. So there were a few things that I knew. I knew that with very little sleep, I'd automatically be feeling negative, because lack of sleep for me is a huge trigger. My mood becomes low. I experience negative self-talk, and I just generally become a real negative Nelly. That's the only way of putting it. And I also knew that my son would be emotional, and that because he's poorly, he'd need plenty of hugs and more attention throughout the day. So on Tuesday, I set myself some real bite-sized challenges, just to see if I could achieve them throughout the day. I tried not to pressure myself with this, but I arranged a physical meeting to a virtual meeting, and instead of an hour, we had 30 minutes, and I found actually it was just as productive And it was another win because I didn't have to commute on the M25. So actually, that was a huge win for me. I also encouraged myself to procrastinate less. So I just allowed myself 10 minutes per task, and I was blown away that I actually saw an increase in my productivity, and it meant that I could spend more time cuddling my son as well. I actually gave myself a lunch break away from my computer. So again, I spent some time with my little boy, and it meant that I was totally away from it, focusing on something else completely. And we took a walk to the post box to post a birthday card, and we got some fresh air. Did I achieve everything I set out to do? Yes, I did. And I probably achieved a hell of a lot more as well, because I didn't spend time making things perfect. As a perfectionist, I've realised that it's only me as a person that sets these expectations, and maybe it's okay if I give 80% instead of 100. I was also able to give attention to my son, plenty of cuddles, and we got out for some fresh air, which, you know, from our well-being was spot on. And also, now that I've managed to get a good night's sleep, I'm thinking more positively as well. And I know that from a personal perspective, I'd rather listen to somebody who's still on their journey and riding the highs and lows of life. And do you know what? That's why I showed up tonight, in the hope that with me just being honest, hopefully it'll help some other people. And that's why I'll continue to show up for the Safety 7. So yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Katie. So just before we move on to Robert, who's next, should have done it after Stuart, but if we can just do a virtual round of applause for each of the speakers, because I mean, I'm a few down the list, I'm dreading following all this. But no, well done, everyone. Thank you. Robert, you're up.
Yeah, I think first, Katie mentioned about following Stuart. I think I want to echo that thoughts about them two. Can I not follow them two next time? Especially with the journey, that's completely what I agree with, 100%. But we'll talk about that a little bit more after I've introduced myself. So I'm Robert Dukes. For those that don't know, I'm a Health, Safety, Environment and Quality Manager at Norfolk Tissue. We do all kinds of paper products. Before that, I was a Health, Safety, Environment Manager at Wax Circle, and probably been in the health and safety field for about 5-6 years now. I've been involved in various Rising Star schemes, various future leaders schemes. So for me, it's not just about what you can learn and develop, but it's also giving back and helping others. And I think that's helped my journey along the way as well, which we'll talk about in a little bit more depth. So for me, I think the first thing is, if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them out there. Feel free to put them in the chat. Feel free to, even after this, just drop us a message on LinkedIn or anything like that. I am a bit swamped at the moment because a member of my team is leaving, so I am kind of doing both 2 people, but I will try and always get back to people. So if anyone does have any questions, and I think the rest of the Safety 7 will support that as well and echo that, just feel free to get in touch with any of us and we'll try to support you as best as we can. So in terms of mental health, for me, I think it is a journey. I think Katie hit the nail on the head there. You're never always going to be up there, and you're never always going to be down at the bottom as well. You know, you are going to have ups and downs, and I think it's also a day-to-day thing as well. I think you'll have periods in your life where everything's going well, where you've got money in the bank, where you're doing a really good job, you've got good friends, your family's all doing well, and you'll have periods in your life where you will have some downtimes as well, which, you know, could be financial hardship. It could be that your role isn't quite fulfilling as much. Could be that you've got some personal challenges, right the way through to relationship breakdowns and potentially losing a member of your family or friends. So I'm not going to sit there and say you're always going to be up there, because you're not. But it's recognising that there's ups and downs and recognising that actually it's okay not to be okay. For me, my journey, I think there's a few things that stand out along the way that's affected my own mental health over the years. I think a big one for me was I suffered a workplace accident, and if anyone's ever talked to Jason Anker, you'll know that actually it's not just a physical part of an injury, it's actually the mental part that's the worst. And that for me was one of the worst times in my life, because, you know, I went from playing rugby and being, you know, in the gym probably 3 times a I was doing PT 3 times a week. I was in the gym probably over 5 times a week, and I was really enjoying getting back into playing rugby. And then I had a hat shit me, caused a slip disc, and for about 5-6 months, I was laid up in bed on a cocktail of drugs that the doctors had given me. And to be honest, it wasn't just a case of the pain relief that I was for. I actually stopped taking it all because it was just a case of I just couldn't actually do anything. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I felt kind of out of it really because the cocktail drugs were so strong. And that was a really challenging time for me because I was contracted within my work as well, so I had the financial hardship thing that I was a bit concerned about. I had the some of the other aspects as well, like not being able to play my sport, not being able to be active, wondering if I'd heal up again and be able to play sport again. They were all kind of things that were going through my head, and yeah, probably I'm not gonna lie, I probably should have actually sought some probably help around that instead of just getting on with it and trying to get through it. But that being said, I think we are resilient as well. I think it's about surrounding yourself with the right people. I think if you are finding people that are negative or not helping the situation, then you do need to take a step back from them, and that's something that I did at the time. I actually focused on the friends and family that actually were around me, and they were a lot better for me than perhaps some of the players that I was playing sport with, because they were just wanting me to get back to play on the pitch, and that wasn't right step for me, because that would have meant potentially injuries longer term. That's one thing I'd say. Another part of the journey for me, and that was a downside really, was when a member of my own team that I played sports with actually took his own life, and it'll always stand out for me as something that you never really fully know what someone's going through. So I remember playing. It was the biggest match of probably the club that we'd played. We played at the local rugby ground. We were against one of our main competitors. This was probably on a Sunday. I remember before the game we were talking about, and I asked for some socks because I had no socks for my kit. I dressed in my kit, but no socks. I was just asked for the socks to put on. And I remember just had a bit of an outburst. He said, "Oh yeah, just take what you want. I don't care anymore." And I just thought it was just because obviously we had to get all the kit there, all this pressure of getting it arranged. Just thought it was that kind of thing. And we had a game. I talked to him afterwards at a pint. And everything was fine, not a problem. And then a few days later, unfortunately, the person took their own life, and that was someone that helped me settle into the team, helped me so much, and to know that I couldn't even recognise it was something that affected me negatively at the time, because it was just that I just couldn't recognise it. And if I knew what I knew now, I probably would be able to recognise it and just say, look, are you okay, and chase it up a few more. But at the time, I'll be honest, I did not know. I did not know half as much as what I know on mental health and wellbeing now. And that's something that I'll say will probably stick with me for a long time. But it is a journey, and I think the things that I try to do to make sure that I catch myself if I am having a bad day or I'm going through a rough patch is try to do fun things that actually I might not feel like doing. And what I mean by that is everyone knows when you're up here and you agree to make plans and you're really excited for them, it's great. But then when you've had a bad day and you've after work you want to get home and sit on the couch, maybe have a cup of tea, have some chocolate or something like that, and you've then got plans that you've made to go out with some friends and you don't really fancy it, actually go ahead and do it. Go see your friends, because actually you will enjoy it. You've done it for a reason, and it's a good thing to do. So there's stuff like that. I think self-reflection is key. I read a book called 5 AM Club, and it was a book that really changed my kind of outlook on mental health, spirituality, and being more connected with the world. And I think that has helped me work on something that everyone, or I think most people, suffer with, and that's work-life balance. I'm terrible for that. I'm still trying to resolve it. I think that's one of the things that probably affects people's mental health more than a lot of stuff, especially if you've got a demanding work schedule and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that trying to have that connectedness and trying to have that understand where you are in each aspect of your life and try to balance it is probably the key thing as well. Lastly, I think one thing I want to kind of highlight is, because I've seen this personally within work, and I probably went through it myself as well, is don't overwork yourself, don't overburden yourself. You know, actually, if you find that you've got a lot of stuff to do in your role and it's causing a little bit of stress, you know, just accept that everything doesn't happen overnight. Because I'll be the first to admit, I'm the world's worst with, you know, workload. You know, I'll sit there and say, yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll do that, and before I know it, I actually, you know what, I can't do it all, and then that's when you can get a bit stressed. So, you know, for me, accept it doesn't happen overnight. Prioritize, delegate, focus on the urgent and the important things.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Robert. Virtual round of applause for him for that. I was on mute, damn it. Next one to Liz.
So just for everybody else who is not in the Safety 7 on the call, we all fan over each other within the 7 a lot. So all we do is message each other and tell each other how amazing we are. So I'm just going to follow up with the speakers before me who are amazing, and how am I going to follow that up? I'm Liz Hancock. I'm the Head of Health, Safety, Environment and Facilities for Uni Park Rail. I've been in safety my entire working career, starting off in the shipyards in Liverpool, which is where I take my mental health frame of reference from. So very, you know, hard working. We all pull our socks up. We get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, we're in work for 6. We work till 10 o'clock. So that's where my frame of reference started. Again, you know, my parents both, you know, worked really hard, you know, and it was the more you worked, the sort of the better you were thought of, that kind of thing. Sorry, I've gone off on a little bit. I'm chartered. I'm working on my fellowship stated. I'm procrastinating a lot on that. So, you know, there's a little bit about my mental health for you. I like to read it and then I'm changing it and, you know, sending it back to my mentor and, yeah, just basically messing around with it. I am also a first aid for mental health instructor. So I deliver training internally, but I also on a voluntary basis deliver to a lot of charities that we work with in association with Uni Park Rail. And yeah, I'm on a massive mental health journey. So the first thing that I would say is that I became a mental health first aider instructor after attending the 2-day course and sitting there thinking, this has just phenomenally changed my life. I looked at things completely different. You know, going on the course made me think, you know, all different, you know, experiences I'd had in the current role, the role that I'd been in, you know, all the way through to back to being in the shipyards and how that's affected myself. As Robert mentioned, I suffer from social anxiety. So I'm the first person in any WhatsApp group to say, yeah, I'm up for this night out. And then literally the day before, I will be thinking of a million ways to get out of it. I've thought about COVID. I've thought about every situation, everything I can think of, and I've used it. And I'm quite honest about it now. So like my close knit friends are like, no, there's no excuse. You are having to come to. But the more I talk about mental health and the more I deliver training on it, the more people go like, I'm exactly the same. And then when you get out, you have like the best night out ever. It's just, yeah, it's you know, I do it quite a lot. I decided that I was going to talk about one particular experience that I've had with mental health and share that with everyone. It was 11 years ago. I lost my mum quite suddenly, unexpectedly to cancer. She was only quite young. She wasn't meant to die. The prognosis was really good. She'd had her first set of chemotherapy, was sent home and caught the flu and basically died of the flu. I was heavily pregnant with my eldest son, so I was I think I was 7.5 months pregnant. And I spent the following 3 weeks just in bed, depressed. I couldn't get up. I barely ate. I was just in a very, very dark place. I barely opened the curtains. She was so excited. It was the first grandchild. I was really close with my mum. You know, it's just a really awful experience. I then went on to have Zach a couple of weeks early. And from going from that state to absolute euphoria, holding your newborn baby child and just being like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. And I couldn't take my eyes off him. I distinctly remember in the hospital just kind of staring at him. And I suppose that was probably a point where a nurse did kind of pick up, and she was like, I'm a bit worried about you. She was like, are you sure you're okay? And I was like, no, I'm just elated. Anyway, I had some quite serious concerns when I got home that the overheating. So we had one of those eggs, and every time it got hot, all the curtains, all the windows got opened, and if it got cold, all the curtains got shut. I then got really paranoid that he was going to die in his sleep. So we had all these, these funky mats and, CCTV on him, and we were up and down in the night checking on him. And this escalated quite quickly to being quite damaging. I couldn't leave the house because I was worried people were going to steal him. My loyal boxer dog that we'd had for 4 years, I was absolutely convinced he was going to kill him. And it was put hell on earth for the dog. So considering I'd walk the dog, every day, he'd gone everywhere with me, to sort of basically living a life in his cage, and literally nobody would listen to what I was saying. So much so to the point that I decided I was going to rehome him. And my husband was absolutely devastated. He's like, this is a huge mistake. I can't see where you're coming from with it. He eventually rung my dad, who rung my GP back in Liverpool, because I now live in Staffordshire, because they're a close family friend. They got in touch with my midwife, who just tipped up the next day. He was like, I'm just passing, how are you? The dog behaved completely different to what he'd normally done. So the visits that were before we had the baby, he was, jumping up on her, she was messing around with him and loving him. And actually, he didn't do that. He stood by the baby, guarding him. And she was like, what are you doing? He's guarding the dog. And I burst into tears, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm a mess. I'm worried, I'm worried about all sorts of different things. And she was like, yeah, okay, so we need to get you some counselling. And I was like, no, I don't need counselling, because obviously I've got this frame of reference that we just get on with things. And I was like, we just pull our socks up, I'm absolutely fine. I now know there's an issue, so I'll get on with it. And she was like, no, you need counselling. So I went and had counselling. So if anyone hasn't had counselling, it is absolutely fantastic. You literally, I feel like I've stolen some of your thing now. I'm just seeing you nod there, Scott, because you mentioned this. Counselling is absolutely brilliant. I did it through my company employee assistance program, so free of charge. If you've got that in work, please do consider using that, because it is obviously completely anonymous. It was absolutely brilliant. It was all to do with the grief of my mum. Obviously, it was sudden and unexpected. I was expecting something suddenly and unexpected, and I basically diagnosed myself with not grieving properly. So yeah, that's a little bit about that's one personal experience. I do lots of things to keep my mental health on track. It's an up and a down. I ebb and I curve. I'm really into doing random acts of kindness, which I crochet little octopus things, and I take my boys out and we hide them in places, and we sit on Facebook on the local, the local community sites, waiting for people to find them and post a picture of them. We get very excited about that. But it actually makes me feel just really lovely, and I'm glad it makes, I know it makes my little people feel like that as well. I make sure that I read, I make sure I do all the things that I do like, but I'm also quite conscious that sometimes work does get in the way, or life gets in the way, and then I do start to feel a bit depressed, a bit down. I don't look after myself. I do probably drink a little bit more than what I should, but I'm aware of it, and I pull myself back and put myself into the good place. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Liz.
How many times did I say did anyone count?
4.
Oh, good. less than 10.
No, thank you for that. And again, I don't know how I'm going to follow that, but I pity Scott and Maz going last. So I think I'm going to kind of split mine into sort of 2, work and then personal. So my name's Neil Fisher. I'm health and safety practitioner within the rail industry. Been doing this for 10 years now. So I think the rail industry, for those that know it, is a 24/7, 365 it's a beast. It's a constant. So work-life balance, well, I know we've already mentioned it, it's pretty much non-existent, but it is so important. Now when mine is massively out of sync, I can end up feeling low, can't see the wood for the trees, and it's just, you know, you feel really down. The negative self-talk starts, long hours, inability to switch off, and I really do struggle with that and always have. So that is just a constant journey. And like Katie said at the start, I don't think you're ever going to be that polished piece of marble, that finished article. It is just a constant journey. So I am learning slowly the benefit of rest, of switching off, and trying to be disciplined with it, but it is a little bit too easy just to pick the phone up and then you've gone down a rabbit hole of emails and phone calls for an hour. But it is something I'm working on. Like you said, Liz, I am aware of it and I do know when to pull back and keep trying with that. Exercise, good nutrition. Now I'm really bad with both as well. So that is, I've put a lot of weight on over the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm trying to shift that, but the difference exercise and nutrition plays in my mental health is massive. And, you know, I sit here sometimes in the office, easy to get someone to go nip out and get a takeaway for us at dinner time rather than actually getting up, having a walk into town, getting something a little bit better. So that is something that I really do struggle with as well, because I love my food, but just trying to eat better. And even if I eat better, do a bit of walking, 3 to 4 days, I feel like a completely different person. It is such a massive difference that I have with exercise and good eating better. But working in health and safety, we are often those people that are looking out for others, aren't we? And it is all too easy to neglect ourselves. But I'm definitely guilty of that. You know, the long hours, not switching off when I should, undertaking what sometimes you think are thankless tasks. It can wear us down, and it does wear me down. Now, on a personal level, and I know a few people have touched on it in terms of losing people. Now, in 2009, I lost my brother to suicide. He was 29 years old. He was 3 years older than me. And he'd gone down the wrong path in life. In and out of prison, we'd become sort of estranged. I'd not spoken to him for 10 years, and then we got a knock at the door one day, police saying that he'd taken his own life. Now, some sort of startling statistics on this that I've seen recently is I've been doing a lot of work with the Samaritans as part of my job as well, and 18 people under the age of 45 take their own life every day. That's, to me, when I saw that, I thought it was 12. I thought it was 12, but then someone's actually said no, it's 8. It's up to 18. That's 6,570 people under the age of 45 that are taking their own life every year. You know, people that think they've got no other option. And I know that's the extreme end of, you know, people's mental health, but that's what it can lead to, as other people have alluded to. So I'm by no means an expert in this. I've not been diagnosed with anything, not on medication or anything like that, but counselling coaching is something that I have been considering over the last, say, 3 to 4 months, just purely because talking does help people. It does, and I think this is one of the things that we're kind of doing here, talking about things, sharing, and just getting things off our chest. I think it is so helpful. But to do better for others, we've got to sort of look after ourselves as well. So self-care is something I'm learning a lot about as well. You know, the little things that you can do to look after yourself, just chilling out, taking a hot bath, going for a walk, practicing the sort of mindfulness elements. I tried meditation. My brain goes at 1,000,000 miles an hour, so that is a real difficult thing for me to try and do. But I do try and do it. I do try, but when your brain's as scatty as mine, it's all over the shop. And yeah, I think just going on to some sort of reference material on it, one book that was released, I think, at the back end of last year, that I read that I thought was absolutely amazing, and it was called Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Dr. Julie Smith. It's absolutely fantastic, and it was one of those that every single page of that, I can relate to that, and she does these really, really good like 1 minute videos. She gives hints and tips on LinkedIn and on a social media channel. So if anyone's not following Dr. Julie Smith, I'd definitely recommend that. Recommend following her and reading that book as well, because it is fantastic. And I think that's the end of my talk now. So thank you for listening. Thank you. So I think I'll hand over to Maz.
Hi everyone. Mine's probably a little bit shorter than everyone else's. I'm really poor at preparation for these things sometimes. So yeah, I'm Marisa Perkins. People call me Maz. I've got a progressive health and safety consultancy based in Staffordshire. About to become a team of 11, which is really good news. So my mental health journey is very similar to Katie. So there's a few things that really are very similar. When I was age 5, my mum disappeared from the house for a week. And on her return, as a child, I had no understanding of where she'd gone. And I developed a really bad stutter. And that's my very first memory of anxiety and being very overwhelmed with it. I had to have quite a lot of speech therapy over the years, and I think that's probably something that stayed with me, that anxiety, and that, you know, that I can just remember it like it was yesterday, and I was only 5 years old. I think probably the times in my life when I've really struggled is when I've really lacked self-worth and felt valued. I worked in public sector for 22 years. There was a part of that whilst it was a great career, there was a period of about 2 or 3 years where I suffered really bad bullying at work, to the point where I can't even talk about it now. It left a real scar with me, and just absolutely my self-esteem completely left me. Had to have counselling for quite a while after. I think the most frustrating thing about it was never dealt with. It was something that was brushed under the carpet, and that the person who was the centre to that bullying went on to bully probably 7 or 8 other women, which is really tragic. So I'm a big advocate for you know, sort of dealing with workplace bullying, and culture is really important for me. Probably one tip, you know, I have real highs and lows myself. I do suffer with real anxiety. I get anxious when I come onto the Safety 7 calls, because I think I'm not even worthy of being here. But I have to say I've been supported really well by the group, and we speak on a daily basis on LinkedIn messages, and I find that really helpful. One thing I've really found that has helped me is to stop measuring myself against others. I think in the last 18 months I've really defined my own journey, and it really is my own journey. I don't look at other businesses, similar businesses, or other people and try and compare myself. You know, there's always going to be someone thinner. There's always someone that can, you know, just do things a lot better than me, cook better. You know, you've really got to define your own journey. I think as part of sort of growing a business, I felt sort of compelled to read quite a few books, and I felt compelled that I should live my life how these books tell me I should. And one of them is one that Robert mentioned, which is the 5 a.m. Club, Miracle Morning. I read that and think I should be getting up at 5 a.m. I think I've gone full circle. That's a procrastinator's planner. So where I even diarise my times out with my friends in the end. I got so regimented about my life. I just find it helps to just let those things go a little bit sometimes. That's what works for me personally, is to, if you wake up in the morning and This morning I did get up at 6:15 and went to walk with friends, but there's been other mornings where I've woken up and thought, oh, sod it, I'm just going to lie in bed a bit longer. So don't, just try not to, social media has many good things about it, but we often compare ourselves to other people doing these great things. If you do anything, take anything away from what I'm telling you, is please find your own journey. Do not let yourself be defined by other people. This is you, and everyone's needs are different. So that's great. It's over to you, Scott.
Wow. How do I sum all that up? Excellent from everyone. I had a whole journey I was going to go on, but I am conscious of time, so I'm going to keep mine very, very short. Very good stories from everyone. My name is Scott Crichton. I'm a principal health safety consultant with WorkNest, which is a national consultancy company based out of Chester. I've been within the health safety sector for 15 years now. I'm 38. I'm married with 2 children, and I started out my journey in the Royal Air Force and ended up where I am today. The reason I tell you I'm 38 is there is 2 times in my life where I have gone through counselling. The first time was 4 years ago when my stepdad suddenly passed away on a day that we were due to go to Cyprus. And instead of going to Cyprus, we ended up going to deal with his very sudden death. I also changed jobs at the same time as that happened. And I also was back in contact with my biological dad, who I hadn't seen for 20 years. And as you can imagine, those mixes of emotions, various things that were going on at the time, 4 months after my stepdad passed away, it was like I'd hit a brick wall. And I recognised within myself it was really dark times. I started to hit depression, which I'd never experienced before up until that moment, and thought, you know what, I need to go and see a counsellor and deal with this. And it was great. She really helped me, and that sort of got me through that period in my life. And then the second moment when I've seen a counsellor is right now. I'm seeing a counsellor just now to deal with some childhood issues that I want to work through. So similar to what Liz said, it's okay to see a counsellor. It's, we need to work through the things that have happened to us in our lives, whatever they may be, and to understand ourselves more. So for me, the reason that I see a counsellor is because I want to understand myself more, those sort of quirks I do, those sort of situations where I find myself anxious, or the things where I sort of wonder, well, why did I do it that way, or why did I do that? I think it's good to explore those with someone else. And a book, we've all talked about books. There's a book that I read a number of years ago by Susan Cain called Quiet, and it really helped me to dispel the myth of we are either introverts or extroverts. And it really helped me as an OSH practitioner to say, actually, I can be both. I can be an introvert, and that's naturally where I find myself. But actually, I've got the extroverted skills within me when I need to call upon them and use those as well. Something that sort of popped into my mind maybe 2 years back was who's looking after us as health and safety practitioners. And I think it was Neil that said it. We help other people on a daily basis, but who's looking after us? Obviously, we need to look after ourselves, but I think the Safety 7 and all our other mechanisms by which we as professionals have contact through the various membership bodies, we need to obviously look after each other and help each other. And Safety 7, I love it. I think it's a great opportunity, a great platform to be able to help one another and help each other. So I'm going to stop on that and give the floor some chance to ask some questions, if that's all right, Neil.
Yep, brilliant. Thank you, Scott. So we will open it to the floor. I'm conscious we do have just under 10 minutes. So if there any questions that anyone would like to ask? Anyone want to share anything that anybody wants to share? It's going to be a hard act to follow, isn't it? Just having a look in the chat. Yep. Apologies if I get this wrong. Catriona?
That's okay, it's Katrina. Just spelled the awkward Irish way with a load of extra vowels thrown in for the crack.
Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. You can call me Kat, though. I'm known across the business as Kat. I also work for Network Rail. I'm Kat O'Brien, and I'm substantively a HSE advisor, but I'm leading up one of the fatigue programs in Network Rail at the moment. Firstly, enormous gratitude to all of you for sharing so openly all of the challenges that you have faced. I don't think there is a person, safety professional or otherwise, that we work with who hasn't had something monumental that they've had to try and overcome that has put their mental health at risk. But I think what I wanted to say was to support what Liz said about mental health first aid. At the very beginning of the call, there was talk about safety qualifications, professional qualifications. I think it's important for us as safety professionals to remember that our qualifications don't have to be purely safety related. There are lots and lots of things. We have so many opportunities for intervention with our workforces. There are so many other things that can help. So I'm a mental health first aider. I've also done ASSIST, which is applied suicide intervention, because I spent the first 10 years of my career on stations, managing railway stations. And so my interface with mental health was not just mine and my workforces, but also with the public, which then shows you the entire gamut of mental health spectrum, from the very severe to the very healthy. And I just wanted to say with Liz, mental health first aid, it teaches you to spot the intervention, and it gives you the toolkit to be able to develop that intervention, because conversation and empathy are skills that can save lives. Absolutely. A simple conversation with somebody can stop them sliding down towards rock bottom, as Stuart was saying earlier. Again, huge applause to you all. It's been such an interesting session. I'm ever so grateful to have been invited. Thank you.
Thank you for coming along, Kat. Really do appreciate it. Really do appreciate you sharing as well. Hayley.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to reflect on something that I think Katie said about our expectation of ourselves, and it's something that I came across the other day, whereby I've got a colleague that's got in a business that I work with that's got quite bad anxiety, very, very bad anxiety actually, that's medicated. And she said that she felt as though she'd failed for having to take medication, because she feels that she should be able to cope without it. And I posed the question to her that if it was me or if it was somebody else and she knew that they were having to take medication, would she see them as less of a person? And she said, no, of course I wouldn't, of course I wouldn't. I said, so that just says to me, it highlights to me how much of a higher expectation we place on ourselves. And it's nearly always higher than what we expect of others. And I think when we're trying to use our tools with our mental health knowledge to identify signs, we have to start with ourselves and make sure that we use that knowledge inwardly. So when we're looking for, am I stressed? Am I overworked, as Neil highlighted? Have I got depression? Do I need counselling? We need to take into account that expectation, and is our expectation on ourselves realistic? It's just, it's something that, as I think industry professionals, we are so used to putting outwardly to other people to help other people, but we don't necessarily use the skills that we've learned on ourselves. And it just really upset me actually that she felt that she'd failed because of her use of medication, but would never ever consider seeing somebody else as a failure for the same thing. And I've also done the First Aid for Mental Health instructor course, and what an eye-opener that is. It's absolutely incredible. But I didn't do it as a self-help tool, and I think it absolutely is. I think anybody that gets the chance to go on that course will find that they take away far more than they ever realised to help themselves, as well as being able to help other people with it. It's just, yeah, an amazing course, and very much highlights how much work we've still got to do, especially in certain industries such as construction and other industries that have significantly higher suicide rates and things like that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. Luke, I think your hand went up next.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say this has been a fantastic webinar, and I just wanted to share briefly my story around mental health and what work I've been doing in the industry. So I've got my own experience of mental health. Obviously, being born with a physical disability, growing up as a child, I knew I wasn't, as what people say, normal. I know I was different to everyone else, so that gave me a bit of a concern how I would cope in work, what my future would be. So I suffered quite a bit with anxiety and depression growing up during my teenage years. And when I first started in work, bit of a brief background myself, I'm currently HSE advisor in the construction industry, petrochemical industry. So I cover all the chemical and coma sites around Humberside and Middlesbrough areas, so like P66 refinery and Zell refinery. Been in the industry since 2011, and to be honest, I was nervous. I had no qualifications, no experience in the industry, worked my way up to where I am today. With regards to work I've been doing around mental health in the industry, for my previous employer, back end of 2018, September 2018, I became the first mental health first aider in the business, and following on from that, I became part of a steering group in partnership with a charity in the construction industry, Mates in Mind. I don't know if anyone's heard of them. They're doing absolutely fantastic work. Then from there, I helped initiate a local strategy, wellbeing strategy for the business. Yep. So 2019, after all the work I've been doing around starting a conversation and that, I've developed my own mental health presentation, which I call Thinking Differently, which if people want to take a look at it, it's on my LinkedIn profile. Then from there, I've delivered it all around the UK pretty much. Refineries down at the European headquarters in London. Most recently, I've delivered it to a college in Grimsby, and the response and feedback I've had was absolutely fantastic, and it just highlights how much work has been done, but also in the industry, as other people have yielded to, how much more work there is to be done in petrochemical and construction because of the multiple factors which can affect working from home. Like if you're on a busy shutdown period, working away from home, not being able to see your friends and family, which was exacerbated during the coronavirus period, because obviously people have different self-help coping strategies, going out for a few pints with their mates, going to the gym. But obviously during lockdown and COVID, people couldn't do that. So that had a massive effect. And I know time is short, so I'll just end it there.
Thank you, Luke. Really appreciate that, mate. Robert, I think your hand up went up next.
Yeah, I think first, Luke, that was amazing. That was brilliant. Sounds like you're doing some fantastic work there, and I'm personally going to be looking at that afterwards on LinkedIn anyway. Just echoing what Hayley said actually about a colleague that felt that they were weaker because they were taking medication for that. I actually, when I first had to get up on stage and speak at an event, I was quite nervous, and it wasn't until I actually spent some time with a mentor and seen them actually getting up on stage. Now, this is, I'm not going to mention names, but this is someone that is at a big Fortune 100 company, probably one of the biggest in the world, and you know, they were getting up on stage and speaking, and they were shaking, they were nervous. And I was like, I didn't see that side of it. You don't see it when a person's on the stage. You don't see that. You just see this person on stage speaking and being amazing. You don't see the stuff behind the scenes. And I think you got to remember that, you don't see all the other stuff that goes on. And you're not, just because you've got to take medication or you got to use a certain approach, you got to use these different techniques, doesn't mean that you're weaker for anything. It just means that, you know, you've done them things to get through it, because we all have different coping mechanisms. Some are healthy, some aren't. You know, but yeah, I think that's one thing that I always say to everyone is, you know, everyone's been through this process. You know, whatever you're doing, people have been through that process, and you don't recognize that until you see other people that are close to you actually, you know, going through that and seeing that. But everyone does go through stuff like that.
Yep. Yep, they do indeed. If there's no more, is there any more questions? The book list, we are putting a book list together now. It's nearly complete, so we'll have that published very soon. Is there any more chats or discussions? Conscious we're a couple of minutes over. Yeah,
Kevin's got his hand up, Neil.
Sorry, I didn't see that. Sorry, Kevin.
Oh, no worries, guys. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invite. I think what you guys are doing is absolutely brilliant. I'm Kevin. I've lived and worked in the Middle East for 17 years and moved back to the UK at the end of last year. Mainly oil and gas, you know, on offshore petrochemical stuff. And I wasn't going to say anything about this, but you guys have kind of inspired me to step outside my comfort zone a little bit to share it. It's not something I've shared openly with very many people. But back in 2017, I was the regional health and safety manager for the Middle East for the company that I worked for. And in one of the countries that I was responsible for, which wasn't the country that I lived in, I got a phone call at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was the phone call that we all as health and safety practitioners dread. And you know, 4 hours later, I was on an airplane going over to do that investigation and start it. And I think that really, I kind of went into practitioner mode. You know, do the investigation, deal with it. You know, all of those elements that you know, the process that we have to go through. And I kind of parked what had happened up until probably about 3 weeks after the event. And you know, I was actually on an airplane. It might have been 3 weeks. I was on an airplane back to the UK to talk to the governing body about it all, and I just literally went it was like, wow, you know, what has happened. And I hit a very, very low point after that, and it took me, well, I'm saying it took me about 6 months to 8 months to probably come out of that. And there was a lot of, you know, everything that you guys were saying. What did I miss? Self-blame. I'm not good enough. You know, constantly second guessing everything that we'd done, and it was very difficult. And I kind of spiraled to disaster after that. And it kind of summed it up with what you guys were all saying about who helps the safety guy. You know, the safety guy is kind of like this sponge that makes sure everybody else is okay. And then we go and sit at home and we're like, oh, wow. Now I'm very lucky that I've got a very supportive partner, and she you know, she kind of observed that, took me out of the situation and helped me through it. But I didn't seek therapy mainly because of where I was living. You know, that doesn't happen over there. And it was, even to this day, like, you know, we're talking about returning to those memories. That's still very difficult. And yeah, so I think what you guys are doing with this whole process is very good in getting people to, you know, to talk through safety and understanding that there's more behind a safety practitioner than somebody that can just read out a regulation, you know, and that we often take on a lot more than we think. So, well, yeah, so that was my 2 pence, and thank you for the invite. And I'd like to be more involved, you know, in future calls as well, if you guys are open to that. But yeah, so anyway, Luke, I'm also in the Northeast. Okay, I'm in North Yorkshire, so not far away from you. So if you're calling past on your way to Middlesbrough, then maybe call in for a coffee and we can have a chat.
Yes, definitely. I will definitely take you up on that offer. I will get in touch with you to get it arranged.
That's brilliant, mate.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing, Kevin. Thank you. So what else? I think on that note, 7 minutes over. I think we're doing well. Thank you for everyone taking part and sharing. This has not been an easy call by any stretch of the imagination. Thank you, and I'll let you get back to your evening.
Thanks. See ya.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
You stopping the recording, Neil?